Welcome back to the full Arsenal. Charlie, let's get straight into it. Arsenal with a really, really damaging draw at Wolves. What did you make of the performance last night?
It was a very different feeling to the 1-1 draw against Brentford, wasn't it? A week earlier, because that draw was against a really good team. Last night, Wolves deserved the point, but they're still one of the worst teams in Premier League history, aren't they? Just by virtue of the fact that it was only their 10th point. So, well, we spoke after the match, didn't we? We covered the game together, and we just felt last night was the first time that there was some doubts there, even though, what is it, 2 wins in 7 in the league. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I kind of had the feeling all along that Arsenal will get over the line. It might not be pretty, but they would get the job done. But just the manner of the way they played after going 2-0 up was just so alarming, I thought. And the mentality as well. I mean, that is a big thing with this team, isn't it? People talk about bottling it, not having the kind of mental strength to get the job done. And just the way they played at 2-0 up, almost inviting Wolves onto them. And the fact as well that equaliser was a defensive mix-up from two players who've been Arsenal's close to one of their best players this season, Raya and Gabriel. And I just find it crazy to think that this was the same team that earlier in the season, went 10 games without conceding a goal. And you look at them there, and I can't look past the fact that it feels like they're just cracking under the pressure. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, and it's easy to say in hindsight, but even when the fourth official put up the 6 minutes of stoppage time, I just felt the body language, amongst the players. Trossard was wasting time, and you just felt they could be in trouble here because they weren't closing their game out properly, were they? And that takes us back to mentality, and that's something that is on the manager as well as the players. And they've got to believe they can do this. They've got to believe they can hold out at Wolves. They've got to believe that they can stay at the top. They're in a good position still, aren't they? I think if you spoke to most Arsenal fans at the start of the season and you'd shown them the league table for mid-February and reminded them they're in the Carabao Cup final, they've been the best team in the Champions League, and they've been, I wouldn't like to say, been given a free pass into the sixth round of the FA Cup, but they've got a bloody good draw away at Mansfield. But it doesn't feel that positive, does it? Today, it feels as though Arsenal have been asked a lot of questions and they're not giving the right answers, and a lot of those players just look knackered.
Yeah, I mean, where do you put the finger of blame on? Because I do agree with the sort of sentiment that a lot of it stems from Arteta. He is the manager; he has to set the tone. But I don't think when you look at the changes he made last night, brings Eze on, he brings Jesus on, he brings Trossard on. It's not like he was throwing on, Christian Norgard or another centre back or another defender to, try and sort of sit in and hold what they have. I think he wanted the players to go and absolutely kill that game, and it just felt like they didn't do that, and almost as a group they just thought, oh, let's just sit deep and we'll just try and see this out.
Yeah, I agree with you. They were weak mentality last night, and you've got players like Declan Rice who he might not be captain again, but he is a captain, he's a leader. But apart from him last night, I don't see enough strong characters in that team. You're looking at Man City teams that past, certainly the Liverpool sides last season. It definitely wasn't just about Virgil van Dijk. There's some real strong leaders in that dressing room. And last night I didn't see enough strong leadership. I didn't see, it was just the organisation was poor. You mentioned the mistake at the end with Raya and Gabriel. But the final third, they were dreadful, weren't they? And it wasn't just Gyökeres, who again was really poor. Martinelli was terrible. Madueke, I thought Madueke, having scored a hat trick last season, having given his thoughts on Wolverhampton as a city, I actually thought last night again it'd be a night for him, and he was really disappointing. Thought Saka did okay as a number 10, but of course he would be okay because he's a wonderful player. But they were just absolutely not good enough in the final third, and a lot of big questions for Arteta. So I agree with you. It's not just on Arteta, but even so, I think if you just take a step back and look at where they are now, this is still down to the manager. And the fact is that they're juggling, injuries and fatigue, because although he denies it, I still think training's too intense all the time. And I think players are overplayed. I really do. There's 2 or 3 players in that that maybe needed a rest last night.
Yeah, you looked at Timber, didn't you? And I thought he looked quite leggy. And, Ben White probably been underused in the past few months. Zubimendi, again, another one who I think looked quite leggy. And, Christian Norgard paid, £10 million in the summer, and he's not even started a Premier League game. So I think that will come into scrutiny for Arteta, not rotating the players. I mean, how does he go about trying to lift them for Spurs on Sunday? How do you view that? Do you view that as, I guess if you're being positive, it's the perfect game, North London derby, you're going to be bang up for it. If you're on the negative, you say you've got to go to your fierce bitter rivals and try and get a result.
Yeah, it's a great challenge. It'd be a brilliant game, well, certainly a good occasion. Spurs fans are going to be up for it, aren't they? New manager. I don't think he really needs to do a team talk, Igor Tudor, to be honest. I'm sure he will do. But this is a real test for Arsenal. And, if you're going to win the title, you go to Tottenham in this sort of situation, you win the game, don't you? So I think it's going to be a real test for Arteta. His press conference will be interesting tomorrow. How do you think Arteta's going to handle things next couple of days?
Yeah, I mean, I think he actually, from a press conference and from us dealing with him, I think he is almost better when his back's against the wall a bit, and he kind of has to come out fighting. I think we saw that a little bit last night at Wolves, with the phrase of sort of, we need to take the bullets, take it on the chin. I think he's a better talker when things are going badly, and I think he feel like he needs to speak. I think when things are going well, I think he's quite happy to let everything just drift along and not be the headline. But I expect he'll be pretty punchy, I would think. I remember after the Man United game when he came in, and it was clear he had a narrative for what he wanted that press conference to be. Literally, the first question could have been anything, and he was going to come out and say, we've had this meeting. So I think he'll come in there armed and know what to say, because he's got to set the tone on Friday for the weekend. Because, I mean, you'll have seen the same as me. If you go on social media, the mood among the fan base is absolutely rock bottom, and it's on Arteta to try and lift it. And he is a good speaker, isn't he? He can do that. He can change the mood going into Sunday.
Yeah, when he wants to be. I mean, you get brilliant press conferences. And at other times, of course, goes out of his way to be unhelpful, really, and you go around in circles with him, can't you? I suppose he's all about fine margins and not wanting to give much away. We've spoken about this before, but ultimately you can have all your light bulbs and you can have pickpockets to nick stuff from players' coats, but if you overtrain them and overplay them, then that's the biggest margin, isn't it? And at the moment, as you say, Timber, because he's been brilliant first half of the season, but he looked really tired, didn't he, last night? And again, at the end of the game, the cross comes in, and there wasn't a player anywhere near to block that cross ahead of Raya Gabriel just somehow contriving to cock it up, basically. But it's big. Yeah, big test. I'd love to see a video of the dressing room at the training ground today and tomorrow, in terms of what Arteta's saying to the players and what the players are talking to each other about, and just the general mood. And look, I suppose Arteta, as he's argued before, the mood's not always as high as you think when we've had a good win, and equally it's not as always low when we've had disappointment. So maybe Arsenal's players are taking it in their stride, still in a brilliant position. I mean, so let's not forget that they're in a good position, but 2 wins in 7 just at this absolute time, and I think it makes it worse. Does it make it worse that this has happened before, do you think?
I think so, and I do think the kind of mentality issue is Premier League focused. I mean, you look at the way they performed in the other competitions. I mean, the Champions League, literally perfect. 8 wins from 8. They're in the final of the Carabao Cup, FA Cup. They've cruised through. Admittedly, they've had nice ties, but all their difficult results this season have come in the Premier League. They've thumped Bayern Munich. They've beaten Atletico Madrid. There is something about the Premier League, and I think it just boils down to the emotional scars from coming second 3 years in a row. And it's the same for the supporters. I think the supporters are the same with the Premier League. Even the way they kind of feel going to a Premier League game and going to a Champions League game. How you change that, I don't know. I mean, Arteta, when he spoke a few weeks ago, didn't he, about, let's jump on the fun boat. I mean, you'd be wanting your money back if you bought a ticket for it. I do now wonder, though, what he does for Sunday, and maybe we'll just finish on that in terms of the team selection. Where does he go from here? Because, as you say, some players look tired. I think of someone like Ben White, who is a great competitor, and I would be tempted to throw him into a North London derby. Eze had a poor game, didn't he? But we know the history of him with Spurs. So what do you think in terms of his team for Sunday, and how much do you think he needs to change it up?
Yeah, I'd put Ben White in, definitely. He obviously went off with a precaution, although there wasn't really anything wrong with him. He just felt, a bit of tightness against Wigan. I'd gamble with Eze, I think. As well as Saka played at Wolves, and he's obviously such a brilliant player, he can play anywhere. So that's not a surprise. But I put him back on the right, and just Eze will maybe have some sort of confidence boost from that brilliant hat-trick performance against Tottenham, which was obviously his standout moment since joining Arsenal, because there's certainly not been enough of them. So I'd have Eze as the number 10. I don't think he will, but I would do that. And then, of course, there's a decision to be made over Gyökeres, isn't there? But I think he'll probably stick with him. But it's going to be such a huge test, a fascinating contest, and just be also interesting how Tottenham approach the game against Arsenal.
Yeah, it feels a lot like the season is on an absolute knife edge, I think, after that Wolves game. And Sunday's kind of going to dictate which way it goes. Either that Wolves game is going to be the moment where Arsenal hit rock bottom and they went, right, this is it, let's turn it around, or it's where the spiral begins. We will, of course, be all across it. Charlie and Josh will be at the press conference tomorrow with the reaction from that, hopefully from a fiery Mikel Arteta. So stay tuned to the channel, continue to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.